With 2022 beginning, it's definitely the start of the Monster Hunter season. What is going on, guys? Dreadclaw here, back again with another video, talking about one of my new favorite franchises, Monster Hunter. And I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated game of 2022, being Monster Hunter Sunbreak. Granted, my other most anticipated game of this year is Bayonetta 3, but Monster Hunter definitely outweighs Bayonetta by a bit much. So, anywho, I did have this video already set and go, recording my voice, but before I uploaded, I deleted it because I generally did not feel like it was on good quality. I was not satisfied with it. So, with my personal time, taking some time out of my streaming schedule, I figured let's sit down and redo the video. And as well, a perfect time since I've been playing the PC version of Monster Hunter Rise, which for me is the definitive version to play Monster Hunter Rise. Unless, of course, you're more in favor of the portability, then I definitely would say stick with the Switch version, especially if you're not a person who's into the graphics or want the 60 FPS, which, by the way, buttery smooth. Oh, so nice. But anywho, as well, of course, getting through Monster Hunter World Iceborne, I could definitely have a fair comparison between the two. Granted, I'm not going to compare Rise to Iceborne because that generally is something I just don't get when it comes to the community, why they think it's a fair comparison when Iceborne is the expansion of base world and Rise is just the base game. And the only fair comparison is going to happen once Sunbreak actually releases. Then the criticism when it comes to Rise can definitely be fair, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about when it comes to like what I definitely want to see, what I'm hoping they'll add from Iceborne, because for me, Iceborne is the definitive way to play Monster Hunter World. Iceborne did so many good changes for me to actually like World. Granted, World was my first Monster Hunter game, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite. When it comes to my favorite Monster Hunter game, it's definitely Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin. But as far as when it comes to the mainline games, it's Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. That's right, there's some people out there that played World, but then they try out some of the older games, and yeah. Must say, I definitely do like it. For Ultimate has like probably when it comes to combat from the older games, definitely my favorite, as well as it comes to the roster. But Stories 2 for me is definitely my favorite, no matter what. It's just that good. But anywho, back to the subject. When it comes to Monster Hunter Sunbreak. For people that don't know what the heck Sunbreak is the expansion for Monster Hunter Rise. And there are definitely some things I definitely noticed after playing the PC version of Rise. I could definitely agree, it's definitely a lot easier compared to base World. Granted, World was also easy, but when it came to some of the post-game content, definitely has a bit more of a challenge to it. And not to say it's a bad thing, because to me, Rise is still a good game. It has its flaws, yes, but it definitely has a lot of improvements over World. Stuff when it comes to like the multiplayer, no, you don't have to fire the SOS flares, which I always forget during fights, during the hunts, and then of course like when it comes to the upgrade and forging equipment. Instead of having two menus, it's definitely merged into one, which is probably the nicest little quality of life improvement for me. Granted, one of the quality of life improvements I don't like, and I generally agree, when it comes to Rise, they should have not gotten rid of the hot drinks and cold drinks. Those should have stayed. And I find it funny, especially with last year, Monster Hunter Stories 2 had hot mist and cool mist, yet Rise didn't. That's so stupid. But, anywho, yes. That's just one of my opinions. I definitely agree when it comes to people, when it comes to that. As well, I do find it odd that Rise doesn't have bleeding, especially when both World and Iceborne had bleeding. But if speculation is true when it comes to the new monsters that they've shown so far, and even the crab monster, which, to be honest, was not the most exciting reveal to me, because I'm not really the biggest fan of the crabs when it comes to monster, but it definitely leaves in variety for the roster of monsters, and if true, it can bring back the bleeding, which could also mean we could see monsters like Oldogarin, Sergios. I mean, heck, we could even see the vampire or maybe the werewolf have the bleeding effect, especially when the werewolf definitely has Oldogarin vibes to him, to it. As far as locations go when it comes to Monster Hunter Sunbreak, I think they're just gonna do one new location, and of course, well, the new village. That's probably gonna be it, especially seeing when it comes to the trail we got at the Game Awards showing off the new werewolf inspired monster. It definitely looked like the ice area we got in I MHRise. Granted, they're probably not showing us too much, because they did confirm they're not going to show us give us more info or show us anything new until spring of this year. So it definitely fits a good slow build up to the release of Monster Hunter Sunbreak in the summer. And of course, when it comes to the monsters, I definitely really like the look of both of the new monsters they've shown so far. I like the general direction they're going with Sunbreak. Moving from the Japanese, which I still like. That's like another thing when it comes to Rise over World for me. I definitely like a lot of the newer monsters compared to what they shown from World. I mean, heck, when it comes to Iceborne, that's another thing for me that we'll get into. But yeah, the whole American Western cryptid theme. We got the vampire, we got the werewolf. Could we get the Frankenstein? Could we get a Grim Reaper? Can we get a zombie? Somebody would think that we might be getting some kind of like Mothman, which I don't see that being a thing, but who knows? It's kind of possible, I guess. They can do some kind of moth monster. But as far as like returning monsters for Monster Hunter Sunbreak, easily my number one is Devil Joe. I need my pickle boy in that game. Especially considering they already had the model, they would just have to overhaul him to work with the wire bug mechanic. Same for some of the other monsters I definitely think are more than likely going to be coming back as well. Especially Oldogarin. I would like to see the subspecies of Oldogarin come back as well. That would be pretty interesting, because for me, as well, when it came to Iceborne, I definitely have like some of the subspecies that were introduced, or variants. I generally liked a lot of the subspecies or variants over the regular monster, like Anjanath. I liked Vulgar Anjanath over regular Anjanath, because I thought he was more fun to fight, more interesting, and a bit more dangerous, but that's because Master Rank. Another monster that's pretty high for me that I kind of feel confused as to why it wasn't in the base game, but I imagine because it was because of COVID slowed down the development for Monster Hunter Rise. But damn it, Capcom, bring Zamtrio's back. Bring my Shark Boy back as well. He's like easily one of the monsters like people have with Lagiacrus that want to come back. It's definitely up there for me. I love to see him. Lagiacrus as well, in some way, shape, or form. I mean, they could probably make it like a Loch Ness monster, because Lagiacrus definitely fits that whole Loch Ness monster kind of thing. And seeing how the way Rise is and how its maps are structured compared to World, I definitely feel like a Lagiacrus, even though there's no underwater combat, I could definitely probably hope that they bring him back. As well with Zinogre, you can bring Stygian, or Stygian, there. I can never actually pronounce the term correct for some reason. As like a little wolf fiend. Garuk would also be pretty neat as well. Gore Magala would be also pretty cool. As when it comes to the Fate 4, since Stories 2 also had a lot of pretty much has all the Fated 4, I would definitely like to see, especially seeing how there's definitely, with the werewolf being more of an ice monster, I would definitely love to see Gammoth in the game. And plus, I feel Gammoth will be a pretty fun fight, since in Rise, I feel pretty much when it comes to Kushala, Dora, it's probably Rise definitely fixed my issues when it came to World, when it came to Kushala. This fight where I just felt like it was just time consuming, a bit boring, and spamming the tornadoes, where the wire bugs made it such a much more enjoyable fight compared to whatever World had. And as well, when it comes to the Fated 4, I definitely feel like Glavenus could also be coming back. It's especially when it comes to the hints of the crab monster's shell looking like a Glavenus skull. I hope so. That would be pretty neat. As well, when it comes to the monsters, I definitely like to see improvement when it comes to the Apex monsters. Get like actual armor that looks cool. I'm kind of surprised since the Apex monsters are basically the Deviants. And I've always got to see the look of the Deviant armor when it comes to Monster Hunter Stories 2. And I'm like, why can't you have the Deviants? Why can't you have them? Especially even seeing Soul Seer's armor in the game looks pretty cool. But yeah, if they were to add another thing, as well make the armor feel worth getting, because that's generally what's when it comes to the Rampage. The Apex monsters are challenging, but they just don't offer anything cool or worthwhile to get to actually fight. And of course, another thing I'd definitely like to see them bring back to Sunbreak is the Guiding Lance. It doesn't have to be one exact one for one, because especially when it comes to Monster and wants to try to be unique with each entry, I can definitely understand that. But if you could bring it back in some shape or form, oh, it was probably one of my favorite things when it came to post-game content for Monster Hunter World Iceborne. It was such a neat concept. It's interesting, because I've not seen Monster Hunter try to do something like that. And as well, kept me wanting to play the game and try to actually level up the environments. Granted, I do think it can use some improvements. Like, it wasn't perfect, but it can definitely use some touch-up from the B team when it comes to Monster Hunter developers. And I feel like it could introduce a lot of potential when it comes to like what they could do, especially when it comes to Rise and Sunbreak. Alright, with the last few points, this is something that definitely I feel like Rise kind of lacked in, is definitely the events department. Granted, I love the Sonic event. It was probably like the best collaboration and quest events they've done for the game, outside of the Okami one. Like, those two were easily my favorite. I did like, of course, the Ghosts and Goblins one, which I definitely seen people were salty that Resident Evil didn't get an event, which, for me, I'm not a big fan of Resident Evil, so it wasn't that big of a deal for me, but I can definitely understand people's disappointment when it comes to that. But event quests, I wish they were more like what World did. I love the Final Fantasy XIV quest. I mean, the fight, not so much. I generally thought the Behemoth fight was decent, but it is an interesting concept, what they're trying to implement Monster Hunter into a style that's more like an MMO. I thought the concept to it, the fight was pretty cool, but the fight itself, not so much. Although the Behemoth design looks pretty cool. But my favorite definitely was The Witcher. Like, especially how well they execute with the music, the victory theme, and the, like, visuals. It looked pretty cool. It definitely felt like I was playing The Witcher, or even Final Fantasy XIV. And as well, the thing they added were different boss fights or some kind of creature from that world. So far, with Monster Hunter Rise, it's only been layered armor. That's about it. And of course, layered armor for the Palico and Palamute, which I definitely do appreciate. But I would like something like actual monsters to fight. As well, of course, I did like you got some weapons from those event quests. So I definitely have to like that big improvement when it comes to that. The only other thing for me as well when it came to Iceborne that I felt was a bit underwhelming was the layered weapons. Which of course could depend on the person, but I definitely do like when it comes to the layered armored system. Granted, I thought that would be the layered weapon system, but I definitely would like to see a little overhaul when it comes to that as well. Especially how cool it would be to use a weapon that's a little bit low in terms of damage. Really cool design, but then of course I can't use it because it doesn't have enough high damage later on in the game. But yeah guys, that's going to do it for me today when it comes to talking about Sunbreak. Let me know in the comment section below what you're looking forward to the most when it comes to Sunbreak. Are you going to be picking up the game? Which platform are you going to get on? In PC or Switch? Let me know. But anyway guys, I'll catch you next video. Peace!